The Writer's Dossier Podcast is a proud member of the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network.
I'm C.W. Blackwell, and this is my Writer's Dossier.
Man, that's perfect. You like butter. All right, here we go, everyone.
No writers were harmed in the production of this podcast.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Writer's Dossier. Thanks for joining us. I'm having a ball already here in this episode with my pal, C.W. Blackwell. And I've got to ask right off the bat, I should have done it before we hopped on air. What do people call you? What should I call you today in this interview?
CW's fine. Yeah. Just don't call me late for dinner.
Just call me late for dinner because we are hungry here on this Saturday special episode of recording the Writer's Dossier. And we're so glad that CW has taken the time to join us here. This is actually our second attempt and we're really excited. I wish we'd gotten the first one done because yesterday, your new book, Whatever Kills the Pain, came out. And this is a collection of short stories. Everyone who out there first should know C.W. Blackwell, recognize that name and know that he, in my mind, is just a king of short stories. So congratulations on your new release, man.
Well, that's very nice of you. Thank you, Jeff. It's good to join the bourbon room.
Yes. Folks who are watching on YouTube, you have the visuals here of the Dossier Podcast studio / speakeasy. And those who are listening, CW has the voice, folks, and the microphone to go with it. We're talking late night over the road conversations here. Thanks for joining us on WLQR. Did you ever think about going into radio, man?
You know, people have told me, or, they've mentioned that I should go into radio at certain points in my life. Nobody ever tells me I should go on TV, though, so I'm not going to take that as an insult.
And cut video feed now.
All right. Yeah, that's right.
No, not at all.
So when we thought maybe we'd have to do just audio, I'm like, you know what? That's okay with me.
Well, I think
we can do audio.
Seriously, audio is beautiful. I think you should record your own short stories. You should do your own audiobook, get that done. But either way, folks who are watching us on YouTube or listening, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. You're going to learn some things about my pal, C.W. Blackwell here, because like I said, the king of short stories in my book, you've written so much stuff. And let's just explain to people why they recognize that name is because you've been nominated for the Derringer Award, which is one of the coolest names for an award in my book. 5 times?
Yeah, 5 times. That's right. Yeah.
Holy
I've been very lucky.
Yeah. And absolutely. You've won 2. So you're a 2-time Derringer winner. Oh my God.
Right.
So tell us about what you won for. Real quick.
So, I've been nominated in the Flash category and the long short story category. I've won twice in the Flash category. I like writing Flash fiction. It's a really good exercise for writers. I think you just zoom in, you make your prose really precise. It's almost like writing poetry, right? You've got to make every word count. And then, to have a beginning, middle, and end in a 700 or 1,000 word story, it's very challenging, but I enjoy it. I enjoy the challenge. And I think that's part of being a writer is really pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and doing things that are a little difficult. And I think that to the extent that you can do that with Flash fiction, it really does help hone your chops.
I agree. Those unnecessary words. And as a podcaster, I'm always trying to whittle things down to make things quicker for the audience because we respect your time. We don't want to waste it listening to my babble. So Flash fiction, that's a great definition. I think these contests are great. Explain why it's important to you, not just from an artist's perspective, but also from a marketing and building your brand and honing your chops perspective. Why is it important to enter these types of contests that can get you recognition?
Yeah, I mean, awards they're not everything. And, it's important to realize that you win or lose or, you don't get a nomination. And that's okay. Just being in that space and really interacting with all the other contestants and writers and the folks that are the judges, it's just another opportunity to be kind of in the mix, right? And as a writer, you really kind of want to be, as hard as it is, because most of us are introverts. I'm an introvert. But,
Yeah.
as an artist, you want to get your art out there. And part of that is just being in the mix. And I think awards does, win or lose, it just allows you that opportunity to be, recognized among your peers. But just as if you get that nomination, or just if someone reads it as an entry in the contest or the award, it gets your name out there. And that's really the most important thing.
I've got lots of different questions. We go a lot of different routes down this road. I want to talk to you about the short story you wrote for an anthology that I'm doing. Let's get right into Whatever Kills the Pain. It's another collection of short stories that you've done, and you are known for a couple things: crackling with energy, emotional depth, and unflinching violence. Work has been described as gritty. And that's what I want you to talk about, so everyone can get to know what the deal is with Whatever Kills the Pain, available now on Amazon. Grab it. I'm looking at it right now on Amazon, $2.99 on Kindle. So right now is a great time to scoop this up. It's also available in paperback. But tell us about Whatever Kills the Pain, and why you wrote those kinds of stories. And was it the pain that people were suffering from that caused them to do bad things, or was it the bad things that happened that caused pain, and the other way around? So tell us about that book.
Yeah, it really could be either one, I think. And the important thing here is that these characters are, mostly they're working people. They're struggling in a system that really only, in my opinion, benefits the wealthiest slice of America. They're really trying to get, make ends meet, and they've got their backs against the wall, right? And so what do you do when you're in that situation, when you really need all the help that you can get, but the system is really working against you? And I think that's really the quintessential noir, right? You have this idea in noir where the system is unbeatable. It's against you. You can't fight it in any other way other than maybe to try to cheat the system a little bit, or an act of desperation, a criminal act, or maybe, that violence has been committed against you and now you're in a sense of revenge or retribution. So, and for me, I think it's different than writing maybe from a police procedural or the PI kind of genre. I really want to focus, and I love those genres too, don't get me wrong. But for this collection, I really wanted to home in on a working class people struggling in a system that's really built against them.
Okay. Well, you're in what, Santa Clara County?
I'm in
California?
Santa Cruz County.
Santa Cruz County. So are these stories set in California, or are they set all over the place?
They are mostly set in Santa Cruz County. So we're here in the central coast of California. There are two stories that take place in Tennessee. And the reason for that is one of them I wrote for an anthology, the Bouchercon Anthology, last year, that was set in Tennessee, right? And so that was kind of the story. It was kind of a long story. The story was accepted into the anthology, but there were some issues with the editor. I don't know if you remember what those were, but I had to withdraw the story. But I'm glad to include it here. Everyone gets a chance to read it because I put a lot of work into it, and I think you'll like it.
Well, that is some good news. So there you go, folks. A story that was accepted into the Bouchercon Anthology is now available in Whatever Kills the Pain. Now, the total page count on this is 223 pages. How many different stories make up those 223 pages?
So you have 12 stories. Originally, there were 14, but it was really just too many, right? At a certain point, you got to look at it and say, well, how many is too many? How many is not enough? And in this case, we felt 12 was the right number. What you end up having is 6 stories that were previously published, sort of my favorite 6 stories of the last few years. And then you also have 6 stories that I wrote specifically for the anthology, right? Or for the collection. And, and that was important to me, right? Because I didn't want to just put something out that was a collection of things that, a lot of people had already read before. I wanted it to be mostly, or at least 50 new stories. And that to me is what kind of gave it this central theme, right? I was able to write and then sort of stick in that vein, and keep this sort of cohesive theme going.
Any of those stories that were previously written that are now in this collection, were any of those award nominated or winners from previous contests that you entered?
Yeah, actually, the first story is called Hard Rain on Beach Street. And this one was actually in the Bouchercon Anthology for San Diego.
Oh, San Diego. Nice.
And so Yeah, and I was really happy with this story. For one, because I got to work with Holly West, who's a fantastic editor. And so this story was included in the San Diego Bouchercon Anthology. The anthology itself won an Anthony Award, which is great. And the story was then subsequently nominated for a Derringer as well.
There you go, folks. So right off the bat, you get this book, Whatever Kills the Pain by C.W. Blackwell, available now. The first story right off the bat's a banger. And you've got to grab this. These short stories are cool because, and you can go into this a little bit more for everybody, they're not necessarily connected other than through maybe a theme, right?
Yeah. And I think that's I think that's really the advantage to writing short stories. And I write novels too, but really when you write a short story, it gives you a tremendous amount of freedom to experiment, right? And sometimes that experiment is going to work and sometimes it doesn't, as you know. But you didn't, at least you go through 2,000-3,000 words. If it doesn't work, you didn't waste a whole lot of time. But what you end up with, and that's how what you're going to see in these 12 stories, is you're going to have stories that are written in first person, stories that are written in, third person, stories written in past, stories written in future or present tense, male characters, female characters, people of color. There are different sort of points of view, different settings, 60s, 70s, modern times. And that's really the advantage of writing short stories, is that you have this ability to work from different points of view and push yourself maybe a little out of your comfort zone and see what works and see what doesn't.
I love it. And I'm just looking real quick here, and folks who are watching on YouTube, you got a shot of that cover. CW held the book up and opened it up to that page. You got to grab this. But you also written a short story for an anthology that I was asked to edit, and which is coming out, should be available at Bouchercon this year. And shout out to someone you mentioned already, Holly West. She did the official Bouchercon anthology, and in putting together this anthology that I was asked to edit, I talked to Holly. And so thank you, Holly West. I know you're listening and watching, for all of your help in editing. And tell us a little bit about how it works with collections of short stories or editing an anthology, having that person to give that guidance to kind of tie all those stories together. Because a lot of people, not everyone gets anthologies, not everyone gets collections of short stories. They want to sit down and read a whole novel. What are the advantages of those short stories, and really the impact of an editor who can help mold and direct? Have you found that helpful?
Absolutely. And you never know. I've been privileged to work with a lot of really great editors. You mentioned Holly West. Here, I worked with Paul Garth, who was just fantastic. He's a great writer in his own right. The Low White Plane is one of my favorite novellas. So if you get a chance, check him out. But he was the editor on this project, and we went back and forth with developmental edits, making sure, sort of reorganizing which story is going to go first and last and in the middle, going through and making sure that the theme is cohesive. And we just had this sort of shared Word document, and went back and forth, and he had suggestions and I would go back, and that sort of communication really worked for us. I think we ended up only making one edit pass, really. And by the time we got to the last story, it was pretty much done. And so it really is helpful to have someone like a Holly or a Paul that has your back and understands the project and knows what you're trying to do. And I was very fortunate enough to have that with Paul here at Rockin' a Hard Place.
I was going to say Rockin' a Hard Place. Thanks for throwing that out there, and shout out to them. And I mean, a lot of your work was polished to begin with after all the hours of work that you've always put on anything that you put out there. You mentioned earlier a little bit about you write novels too, and I just want to touch on the Hard Mountain Clay for people who do want a full-length novel. Tell the audience a little bit about Hard Mountain Clay and how that still is a C.W. Blackwell novel. I mean, it's got your whole handprint all over it because of where you draw your characters from and the settings, the physical settings, and then, like you said, the socioeconomic settings and the pressures of life, and maybe good people doing bad things or having to get by. People want a real book and a collection of short stories. C.W. Blackwell's your guy. So tell everybody about Hard Mountain Clay a little bit.
Yeah, so Hard Mountain Clay is, about two siblings growing up in a really difficult situation here in the Santa Cruz Mountains where I live. I grew up in the Santa Cruz Mountains. It was very personal to me, and a lot of that was just a way to get back into that time, and write about the scenery that I grew up in and have this really deep connection with. The first thing you're going to notice is this kind of this descriptive sort of narrative of the land, the flora and fauna, because that's what I would do. I would go out when I was a little kid, just go out into the woods and learn about all the different, be able to identify all the different trees and plants and the things like that. And so I think bringing that in, it does give you this sense of of authenticity, and that's really what I was going for with this book. That time in your life too, when you're 11, 12, 13, you're sort of in between, right? You're shifting out of this world of, the world is safe. The adults always tell you that everything's going to be okay. And right around that time, you start looking around and saying, maybe they weren't totally right about that, right? There is danger in the world, and it's a scary thing. And so in this story, their mother is suffering from substance abuse disorder, and she gets tied in with this really bad boyfriend who's really sort of pushing her down this dangerous path. And they get caught up in it, and it's about the choice that they make. What are they going to do? Are they going to stick it out? Are they going to run away? Are they going to fight? How do you manage that at that age? I really enjoyed writing it, and I got some great feedback on the story or on the book, and so I'm happy it's out there. That was put out by Shotgun Honey.
Shotgun Honey,
yeah, which is a great imprint.
Yeah, absolutely. No, shout out to those guys there too, Shelley. I'm going to wrap this up here. You touched on something about how you get out. You used to get out, you get outside and you feel the earth and you see the people around you. That's the thing that you bring to your writing, and I think it's reflected in your stories, is a real sense of authenticity. And I don't want to say uniqueness, because I think that that word is overused, but you use your specific environment, both physically at home and at work. Can you talk a little bit about how you've come up with things in life that you have exposure to personally at work or just being out, and putting those, sprinkling some of those situations or environments or characteristics into certain people in your story? That authenticity that really comes from kind of a unique place, but like I said, I don't want to overuse unique.
No, I understand. When I first started out, I wrote more speculative fiction, so horror, weird westerns. And so after a couple of years of doing that, and I still love that genre too, but about a couple of years into it, I got a job as a crime analyst for the local, I work for the county. And so, part of that job is just cataloging and understanding crime at its fundamental levels on a very local level. And so the who, what, when, and where, when it happens, what types of crime. And so you start to, I think at that point, I started to make this big shift toward realism and writing crime fiction from a perspective that without any speculative elements, right? And so now I felt this need to kind of write things as close to exactly how they actually are as possible, right? As a matter of respect to people that are going through these very difficult situations, as they often do in crime novels, right? And so introducing that element of realism is important to me, making sure that it's rooted in a place and time. John Steinbeck is a big hero of mine, and he also wrote on the Central Coast, of course. And so, he sort of brought in these ideas of working class themes and also describing the landscape very beautifully. And so, I look up to that as well, and looked at it as John Steinbeck is kind of one of my sort of guideposts. And so there is that element as well of describing the landscape, describing the people with a sense of realism that I really enjoy.
Yeah, you nailed it with the who, what, when, and where. But the thing that you really bring, the layer that you put on that will make people walk away really reeling from your work, is the why. The people, yeah, you can put together a place anywhere in the world. You can put a person of any background, but the why. Folks out there, you're going to enjoy C.W. Blackwell's work, because it's tight, it's quick, and it's gritty, but it's real, and it's rooted in like you said, realism based on your real exposure to things out there. So that's what makes, I think, your writing so cool, in addition to so many other things. So that's it. Where can people find out about you? I know you're on social media. We follow each other and we tag and share, and we appreciate that. But how can people connect with you besides going to Amazon, which they should right now?
Yeah, no. So right now I'm mostly on Blue Sky and Instagram. So you can find me there. Just a Google search will get you there too. Yep. So we're right now this is on Amazon, but it's also on bookshop.org. So I encourage you to go there as well. That supports local bookshops.
Love it.
And you could always order it and have your local bookshop, deliver it right to their location, and you can pick it up for free without any delivery charge. Of course, that's what I like to do. However you want to get your hands on it, is great. I appreciate all the support anyone can give this book.
We'll add your social media links to the show notes on this, as well as your home address, so people can come to your place and pick it up directly from you.
That's right.
I'm just kidding. Everybody definitely go to Blue Sky and Instagram. Look for the links in the show notes for C.W. Blackwell, and go to bookshop.org and grab up Whatever Kills the Pain. C.W., thanks for joining us. We really appreciate the time working through the logistics, and we can't wait to see more from you down the road.
That was great being on the Dossier.
It's great to have you. You've been in the Dossier for a long time at thewritersdossier.com. Everyone can go out there and read the interview from a few years ago, but we're super happy to have you on the podcast. So take care, bro.
Thank you, Jeff.
The Dossier Podcast is a production of The Idea Academy.